Good evening, dear dreamer. This is Professor Somnus, and tonight I invite you to set aside the burdens of the present. Close your eyes, turn the page, and let history guide you to sweet dreams and cramped quarters of 19th century London, a city humming with industry and invention, but also thick with fog, hardship, and secrets. Tonight, our journey will carry us through the shadowed streets. We will travel not as lords or ladies, nor as the famous inventors and poets who have filled many textbooks, but as the ordinary souls who lived and labored in the city's most forgotten corners. Breathe deeply. Beneath grand facades and gaslight, we will slip quietly into the world of the Victorian slum, a place of relentless routine, quiet courage, and subtle joys amid daily struggle. As the city sleeps, let us wander together gently, soothingly, through the rhythm of lives once lived. So settle in. The fog rolls in, muffling the distant clatter of horse-drawn carts. 1,000 lives flicker in the glow of lamplight, waiting to be remembered. But with the restless shuffle of bodies pressed close by necessity and the persistent muffled sounds of a city waking to hardship, life in a Victorian slum was worse than you think. Let the world outside fade, dear dreamer, and travel with me to the heart of Victorian London, where the first light of dawn struggles to pierce the thick fog that coils between crooked chimneys and rusted gutters. Here in the warren of narrow streets and brick tenements, the day begins, not with the gentle chime of a clock. Imagine yourself as one of the countless souls living within a single, crowded room. Perhaps a child, perhaps a weary laborer, perhaps a mother whose hands never truly rest. The room itself is barely wider than your outstretched arms. Its walls, once papered with faded floral patterns, now peel and curl at the damp corners, stained by years of coal smoke and leaking rain. Underfoot, the floorboards are rough and splintered, marked by generations of footsteps. The room is already alive with quiet activity, the careful shuffling of feet, the low murmur of voices, the cough of an infant, the sigh of a mother as she gently nudges her children awake. In one corner, an iron kettle sits atop the tiny stove, a precious thing, though its contents are meager. The air inside is heavy and close, tinged with the scent of damp cloth, boiled cabbage, coal dust, and the faint, underlying sharpness of disinfectant. You hear the soft, persistent scurry of mice in the walls, and somewhere above, the rhythmic creak of another family rising to meet the day. Your blanket is thin, perhaps, patched from old shirts or worn coats, and you share it with siblings, each curled tightly for warmth. You wake, not fully rested, but out of necessity. Breakfast is a ritual of sorts, though the fare is simple and often uncertain. A crust of stale bread, softened in weak tea if you are lucky. Sometimes nothing more than a spoonful of gruel, cooked slowly to stretch what little flour or oats remain. You eat quickly, hunched against the lingering chill, your thoughts already turning to the day's work. Outside, the city is a living thing, its breath visible in the clouds of steam that rise from street grates and sewer vents. The alleyway is slick with last night's rain, puddles reflecting the pale, uncertain light. The clatter of horse-drawn carts mingles with the shouts of costermongers and the distant clang of church bells, marking the start of another day. If you are a child, your place is not in a classroom, but in the streets, where every hour carries the weight of necessity. You might be sent to scavenge, picking through heaps of refuse for rags, bones, or scrap metal, anything that can be sold for a penny or two. You might join the river of children who dart between carriages, selling matches or flowers, their hands blackened and nimble. For some, there is the endless monotony of the factory, long rows of spinning machines, the air thick with lint, and the constant, dull roar of gears. Here, the hours blur together, measured only by the ache in your arms and the dust in your throat. If you are older, you might find work as a washerwoman, scrubbing laundry in cold water until your fingers are raw and chapped. Or you might take in piecework, stitching endless seams by the flicker of a candle, your eyes straining against the gloom. Sometimes there is no work at all. The city's poor gather at the gates of docks or factories, hoping to be chosen for a day's labor. Those left behind return home, empty-handed, to the silent disappointment of their families. For many, the workhouse is both a threat and a last resort. Its gray walls loom at the edge of the neighborhood, a constant reminder of what awaits those who cannot fend for themselves. Inside, men and women are separated, children often taken from their mothers. The day is ruled by bells and discipline. Wake before dawn, work until dusk, meals taken in silence. The food is plain, the beds hard, and the rules strict. Yet for some, it is the only refuge from starvation. Illness is another silent presence. The crowded quarters and poor sanitation breed disease, cholera, diphtheria, tuberculosis. You learn to recognize their signs: the hollow cough, the feverish flush, the neighbor whose door remains closed for days. Doctors are rare visitors in these streets, and medicine is a luxury most cannot afford. Yet, even amid hardship, life persists. There are moments of laughter, children playing with hoops made from old barrels, girls skipping rope in the narrow lanes. Neighbors share what little they have: a bowl of soup, a loaf of bread, a kind word in the darkest hours. On Sundays, the sound of hymns drifts from the chapel, mingling with the cries of street vendors. The rhythm of your days is a constant struggle, but also a quiet triumph. Each morning survived is a victory. Each night endured is a testament to resilience. As evening falls, the city's lamplighters make their rounds, touching each post with a flickering flame. Shadows stretch across your room as you settle in for the night, exhaustion pressing heavy against your bones. You listen to the familiar sounds, the distant clatter of wheels on cobblestone, the soft drip of rain at the window, the low hum of voices rising and falling with the wind. You close your eyes, and for a moment you drift, dreaming of a world beyond the narrow streets and low ceilings, where hunger is only a memory and comfort is more than a fleeting dream. And so, dear dreamer, in this quiet place between waking and sleep, remember, the lives lived in the shadows of the Victorian slum were marked by hardship and hope in equal measure. Each day was a battle, but each small joy penny found. A neighbor's kindness, a moment of laughter was cherished all the more. Let us gently rise once more, stepping softly from this world of struggle, ready to follow the next thread in the tapestry of London's past. Life in a Victorian slum was worse than you think. Imagine yourself, dear dreamer, in a narrow alleyway, the kind that weaves and twists through the heart of old London. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying wood. Your home is not a house, but a single crowded room, tucked beneath a leaky slate roof. Rainwater seeps through the cracks, tracing slow, silent lines across the faded wallpaper. You stir before dawn, roused not by the gentle light of morning, but by the sound of rats' quiet. persistent and always searching for crumbs. The chill of the night lingers in your bones, and your thin blanket offers little warmth. You are hungry, but so is everyone else. Breakfast, if it comes, is a heel of stale bread and perhaps a cup of weak tea, luxury, really, and not always guaranteed. Your mother's tired eyes blink in the dimness. Your father, if he is present, is already gone off to seek day labor at the docks, or perhaps vanished altogether, lost to the city's endless demands. The sound of coughing, snoring, and whispered arguments seeps through the walls, a constant background to your existence. There is little privacy here. In summer, the air grows thick and stifling, heavy with the odor of sweat, spilled ale. Your room is shared with strangers, sometimes families divided only by threadbare curtains or makeshift partitions of old crates. In the winter, the chill bites at your fingers and toes. The hours are long, stretching from dawn until the sky turns dark again. Your hands are always busy, always searching, always a little dirty. By the age of 6 or 7, you are already expected to work if you are lucky enough to find work at all. Perhaps you join the other children in the streets, sorting rags, selling matches, or scavenging bits of coal that have fallen from delivery carts. You rise early, eat a bowl of gruel in silence, then labor at whatever task is assigned, breaking stones, picking oakum, washing endless loads of laundry. If you are older, you might work in a sweatshop, stitching garments by candlelight, your eyes aching and your back hunched over the endless seams. There is the constant fear of injury, the ever-present threat of being dismissed for the smallest mistake. For many, there is the workhouse, a looming presence in every slum. The workhouse offers shelter, but at a steep price. Your freedom, your dignity, your family, often separated by rigid rules. Inside, the days are measured by bells and routines. The work is monotonous and hard, but at least it keeps hunger at bay, if only for a while. Illness is a constant companion. The narrow lanes are breeding grounds for disease, cholera, typhus, tuberculosis. Doctors are rare, and medicine is often beyond reach. Still, life continues, drawn forward by necessity and hope. Yet even here, amid hardship, there are moments of comfort. Perhaps a neighbor shares a bowl of hot soup on a cold evening. Perhaps laughter flickers around the fire as children invent games from scraps and stones. On Sundays, if fortune allows, you attend a service at a small, drafty chapel, where the hymns echo off stone walls and offer a few moments of peace. Small joys matter. A penny found in the gutter, a dry spot by the window, a story told by candlelight. The rhythm of your days is a constant struggle, but also a quiet testament to endurance. As the sun sets, the city's lamplighters make their rounds, and a pale glow seeps through your window. You settle down for the night, exhausted, the sounds of the city swirling outside distant bells, the clip-clop of hooves, the low hum of life continuing on. So, dear dreamer, as you rest beneath your thin blanket, remember, in the heart of the Victorian slum, every day was a battle, but every night held a fragile hope that tomorrow might be gentler, the hunger less sharp, and the world outside a little kinder. Let us quietly rise from this room, stepping gently back into the fog-wrapped streets where another story waits to be told. He sees firsthand how poverty is not always the result of vice or laziness, as so many believe, but often the outcome of ill health, bad luck, or the relentless grind of circumstance. As the years pass, Booth's vision expands. He enlists the help of local clergy, schoolmasters, and charity workers. Because they have no shoes, men who walk the length of the city each day in search of work. They provide accounts from their communities, tales of families forced to pawn their winter coats, children absent from school. In his study, Booth begins to draw. With careful hands, he creates a map of London, each street, alley, and court colored according to the state of its inhabitants. Gold and red for the well-to-do, pink and purple for those living in modest comfort, blue, brown, and finally black for the most destitute. The map becomes a powerful tool, a visual testament to the reality hidden in plain sight. In the black-shaded streets, Booth notes, chronic want is the rule rather than the exception. Here, he writes, there is little hope, little change, little light. The impact of Booth's work spreads slowly at first. Some city officials are skeptical, unwilling to believe that poverty is so widespread. But as the maps are published, their detail and quiet authority become impossible to ignore. Charities use them to direct aid. Politicians cite them in debates over reform. Journalists print copies, sparking public debate. Yet, for Booth, the work is deeply personal. He feels the weight of every story he records, every hardship he witnesses. He writes in his diary of sleepless nights, of dreams haunted by the faces of the poor. His health suffers. His spirit is sometimes heavy with doubt. Still, he presses on. He continues to walk, to listen, to document. He believes that only by seeing the truth can society hope to change it, and slowly, change does come. Booth's maps and reports help lay the groundwork for reforms, the creation of old age pensions, better housing, and more humane workhouses. His insistence on seeing the poor as individuals, each with their own dignity and story, becomes a quiet revolution in the way society thinks about poverty. Today, Booth's maps are preserved in archives, fragile, faded, but still powerful. They remind us that behind every statistic is a life, behind every shaded street, 1,000 stories. They show us that understanding begins with the simple act of noticing, of walking the streets with open eyes and a willing heart. As you rest now, dear dreamer, let the image of Charles Booth linger in your mind, a solitary figure moving through the city as fog, notebook in hand, a quiet champion for those the world would rather forget. And as the city's bells toll softly in the distance, let us slip onward, following the next thread in London's tapestry, a thread woven from mystery, loss, and the silent resilience of forgotten children. The tragic tale of Charles Booth mapping poverty. Let the gentle hush of the slum fade into the distance as we turn our attention to another figure moving through the mists of Victorian London. Now, dear dreamer, picture a man walking the city's labyrinthine streets, not with hurried steps or averted eyes, but with quiet purpose, a notebook in hand and a mind tuned to every detail. This is Charles Booth, a man whose curiosity would become a lifeline for countless forgotten souls, and whose legacy endures in the faded pages of a map that changed how the world saw London as poor. Charles Booth was not born to the hardships of the slum. He entered the world in Liverpool, the son of a prosperous shipping family. He could have followed a path of comfort, remaining at a distance from the city's struggles. Yet Booth was restless, his mind ever probing, questioning, seeking to understand the world in all its complexity. By the 1880s, London was a city of stark contrasts, Elegant boulevards and glittering ballrooms stood cheek by jowl, with alleys thick with poverty and despair. The city's population had swollen to over 6 million, swelling its edges and pressing people ever closer together. For many Victorians, the lives of the poor were invisible, hidden behind a curtain of indifference and respectable silence. Booth, however, could not look away. He was troubled by the gap between the city's appearance and its reality. While politicians and newspapers insisted that only a tiny fraction of Londoners lived in poverty, Booth suspected the truth was far darker, and so, with methodical care, he set out to uncover it. He assembled a small team of social investigators, teachers, retired police officers, each equipped with a notebook and a keen eye. Day after day, in rain and fog, sunlight and soot, Booth and his team walked every street of London. They visited homes, stopped by workhouses, and spoke with those who made the city's machinery hum. Dockworkers, seamstresses, children in ragged shoes, widows eking out a living as charwomen. Imagine Booth as he enters a tenement. He climbs narrow, uneven stairs, the air thick with the scent of damp and coal. He listens as a mother describes her daily struggle to feed 6 children on a washerwoman's wage. He observes the children's mull hollow-eyed, sometimes cheerful, sometimes silent, playing in the shadows, their laughter mingling with the coughs and cries that fill the building. He is meticulous in his observations. Every detail is noted. How many families share a room? How many pennies are earned in a week? What food is eaten? What illnesses linger? He records the texture of the wallpaper, the state of the floor, the presence or absence of books. He does not judge. He simply listens and writes, quietly documenting a world few of his peers have ever seen. The work is not easy. Booth faces suspicion from some, hostility from others. In certain neighborhoods, he is viewed as an interloper, his motives questioned, his presence barely tolerated. Yet his persistence is unwavering. He walks on, street after street, month after month, year after year. Booth's notes fill dozens of leather-bound ledgers. Each page a mosaic of human stories, stories of resilience and suffering, of hope and resignation. Yet for every child rescued, many more slip into shadow. Newspapers occasionally print stories about missing children, their faces sketched in somber lines. Sometimes a hue and cry is raised, but often the world moves on. There are mysteries that linger even now. Why did so many children vanish, their names lost to time? Did they find new lives, or simply become another fading thread in the city's endless tapestry? Some historians speak of the so-called child migration schemes programs that sent thousands of poor London children to Canada, Australia, and other distant lands. The intentions were often well-meaning, but the results were mixed. Some children found new homes and opportunities. Others faced hardship, loneliness, or worse, far from the city that had once been their only world. Consider the story of Thomas, a boy of 10, whose name appears in the records of a parish workhouse. He was sent to Canada in 1887, along with dozens of other children. The journey was long, the ship crowded and cold. On arrival, Thomas was placed with a farming family, expected to earn his keep through hard labor. For some, this was salvation. For others, it was simply a new kind of hardship, the comfort of familiar streets replaced by the vast silence of foreign fields. Back in London, the loss of so many children was both a tragedy and a secret. Families sometimes clung to the hope that their lost sons or daughters might return, older and prosperous. More often, their memories faded, replaced by the daily struggle to survive. There were darker mysteries, as well, rumors of children taken for profit, spirited away by criminal gangs, or lost to the labyrinth of alleyways and hidden rooms. Victorian society, with its rigid sense of propriety, often turned a blind eye to these disappearances, preferring not to see what was too painful to acknowledge. Yet, amid the sorrow, there were glimmers of hope. Some children found guardians, teachers, or kind strangers who offered a place to sleep, a crust of bread, or a gentle word. There were reformers who spoke out, demanding better laws and safer streets. Over time, changes came, new acts of parliament, better policing, and a growing sense of social responsibility. But for many, help arrived too late. As you drift through this landscape of loss and resilience, imagine the city's night air soft with the distant sound of church bells, the gentle murmur of the Thames as it slips past the old docks. The mystery of the lost children remains, woven into the silence between heartbeats, a question unanswered, a story half told. Let us pause here in the quiet and remember. Every street and alley in London once echoed with the footsteps of children. Some remembered, many forgotten. Their stories linger in the stones and in the soft hush of the evening fog. Now, dear dreamer, we will leave the shadowed lanes behind and ascend, gently, into a very different world, a world of light and luxury, of ritual and restraint. Let us step softly from the slums into the drawing rooms of the Victorian elite, to glimpse the comforts and the quiet burdens of high society. The mystery of the lost children of London. The night drifts onward, and the city's fog deepens, softening the harsh outlines of brick and stone. As we wander farther into Victorian London's tapestry, we come upon a quieter mystery, a story, not of maps or reform, but of absences, shadows where children should be, laughter that never returns. The gas lamps are still burning, their glow uncertain, as the first carts rattle down the cobblestones, and girls, some barely more than toddlers, picking through heaps of refuse for anything that might be sold, eaten, or traded. Let us slip gently into the world of the lost children of London. Imagine, dear dreamer, the city in the earliest blue of dawn. In the narrow lanes near the river, a few figures, stir-agged boys. The city swallows thousands of lives every day, but none more quietly than those of its children. Imagine her name is Eliza, common name for an uncommon story. Others slipped through the cracks, vanishing into the city's maze of alleys, workhouses, and factories. In the Victorian era, London's population seemed to multiply endlessly, and with it, the number of children born into poverty, orphaned by disease, or abandoned by parents who could no longer care for them. Her mother, once a seamstress, fell ill the winter before. Some found shelter in the crowded tenements, watched over by neighbors or older siblings. Let us walk with one such child. She is 8 years old, with tangled hair and a sharp, watchful gaze. Her father is a shadowy figure, sometimes present, more often absent, haunted by his own struggles. Eliza wakes before the sun, curled on a pile of rags in a corner of her family's single room. She knows the city's moods, the way the fog muffles sound, the way hunger sharpens the senses. Some are sent away, bundled onto orphan trains, bound for the countryside or distant colonies. Her first task is to fetch water, braving the pump at the end of the street, where older boys sometimes lurk, jostling for position. Then she sets out to find scraps, bits of coal, stray buttons, anything the world has tossed aside. Eliza is not alone, yet she is often invisible. In the heart of the city, children like her are everywhere selling flowers, matches, or newspapers at the feet of hurried passers-by. Some find work as crossing sweepers, brushing the mud from intersections for a penny or two. Others slip into factories, their small hands put to work threading needles or cleaning machinery. There are those who vanish quietly, swallowed by the rhythm of the city. Others fall prey to illness, hunger, or the many hazards of street life. The city has its own ways of coping with these disappearances. There are charities of coarse-ragged schools for the poorest children, where lessons are brief and food is sometimes the only real reward. There are orphanages funded by benefactors who wish to soothe their consciences. High tea and hypocrisy inside a Victorian drawing room as midnight deepens and the city's heartbeat slows. We leave behind the narrow lanes and restless children of the slums. Now, dear dreamer, imagine yourself ascending a grand curving staircase, your footfall muffled on thick carpets, the air subtly perfumed with polished wood, beeswax, and the faintest trace of rosewater. We have entered another world entirely, the drawing rooms of Victorian high society. But by the measured ticking of ornate clocks and the gentle clatter of fine china, soft lamplight spills across velvet drapes and gilded mirrors, casting a warm glow on the room's careful arrangement chairs. Just so, a piano waiting in the corner, delicate figurines resting on the mantelpiece. It is late afternoon, and the ritual of high tea is about to begin. A silver tray is brought forth by a liveried servant, bearing steaming teapots, plates of crustless sandwiches, and towers of small cakes Battenberg, Victoria sponge, and scones adorned with thick cream and jam. The conversation is quiet, measured, and, above all, polite. Voices rarely rise above a murmur. Each word is chosen as carefully as the porcelain cups from which they sip. Questions about the weather, the latest novels, and the Queen's health drift gently through the room. Rarely do these conversations stray into the realm of hardship or the world beyond the polished windows. Imagine yourself seated among them, observing the rituals unfold. A young woman, perhaps the daughter of the house, pours tea with practiced grace, her every movement a study in decorum, her smile gentle, but her eyes quietly watchful, attentive to the smallest breach of etiquette. At the far end of the room, an elderly aunt recites a poem in a soft, measured voice. The children, dressed in miniature versions of adult finery, sit on stiff-backed chairs, hands folded neatly in their laps, learning early the art of self-restraint. Every gesture is deliberate, every silence meaningful. Beyond the surface calm, however, there is a constant undercurrent of expectation, a gentle, ever-present pressure to maintain the right image, to say the right thing, to embody the family's reputation. A spilled drop of tea, a misplaced word, or a rumpled sleeve might become the subject of whispered concern once the guests have departed. There are rules here, both spoken and unspoken. Calling cards must be left on silver trays in the hall. Invitations accepted or declined according to a precise calendar of social obligations. The expectation to marry well, to maintain appearances, to suppress the more troublesome truths of life beyond these walls. These are quiet burdens, carried with poise and often with loneliness. Still, there are moments of genuine warmth, a shared smile over a private joke, a gentle squeeze of a hand, the soft glow of candlelight on a winter's night as the family gathers to read aloud from a favorite novel. The world outside may be harsh and unpredictable, but within these walls, time itself seems to slow each day, unfolding in predictable, comforting patterns. As evening falls, the drawing room transforms once more. The family retires to the parlor, where soft music drifts from the piano, or they step out to the garden, where the last light of day lingers on manicured lawns and carefully tended rose bushes. Servants move quietly through the hallways, lighting lamps and drawing heavy curtains against the chill. Upstairs, in bedrooms warmed by crackling fires, the house's youngest residents climb into beds heaped with quilts and down pillows. They are read gentle stories of far-off lands, their eyelids growing heavy as the wind sighs against the window panes. Downstairs, the last embers glow in the hearth as the drawing room empties. The day's small dramas and triumphs folded away like a favorite shawl. The house itself seems to breathe a sigh of relief, settling into the hush of night. As you rest here, dear dreamer, in the soft cocoon of privilege and expectation, reflect for a moment on the contrasts that define Victorian London, others by comfort and constraint. Yet, in every corner of this city, the rhythm of life continues. The gentle tick of the clock, the distant echo of carriage wheels on stone, the hope quiet and persistent that tomorrow will bring something kinder, something new. Let us slip quietly away from this world of silk and silver. We will gather our thoughts, dear dreamer, and prepare to return to our own time, carrying with us the lessons of a city that once never slept. And so, dear dreamer, as the last echoes of footsteps fade along the cobblestone streets, we find ourselves drifting gently away from the restless heart of Victorian London. The city, with all its contrasts, its grinding poverty and gilded parlors, its lost children and careful rituals, slips quietly into the distance, leaving behind only the softest murmur of memory. Let your mind wander now through the fog-laced alleys and sunlit drawing rooms we have visited together. Remember the rhythm of lives shaped by hunger and hope, the small victories of endurance, the quiet burdens carried behind polished doors. You have seen the world through many eyes tonight, the weary child in the slum, the reformer tracing misery on a map, the vanished faces of the forgotten, and the careful grace of those who lived behind velvet curtains. As you rest, imagine the city settling into sleep at last. In the slums, a mother hushes her children, drawing them close beneath a thin blanket as the first light of dawn presses gently at the window. In a grand house, a servant treads softly down a candlelit hallway, ensuring all is in order before slipping away. Somewhere, the river's slow current carries away the day's noise and sorrow, leaving only the hush of possibility. History, like a lullaby, wraps around you as familiar and strange, sorrowful and sweet, filled with lessons and comforts for those who listen. Even in the harshest times, there are moments of tenderness, a penny found, a hand clasped, a song hummed low against the night. These are the threads that bind the past to the present, reminding us that even in struggle, there is always the quiet hope of gentler days. So, as you lie in the comfort of your own bed, let the cares of the day fall away. The city outside is silent, the world within is safe. Let your thoughts drift, unhurried and free, through the gentle corridors of memory and imagination. And so, dear dreamer, as the echoes of history fade and the quiet of the night settles in, May your mind find peace and your dreams take you to places even time cannot touch. Until next time, sleep well and dream deeply. Close your eyes, turn the page, and let history guide you to sweet dreams.